Chris, great to meet you.
Same to you, Geeta. Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, I want to ask you if you could tell me a bit more about your film. It looks like a
Yes.
great Christmas film.
Yeah, I never saw myself making a Christmas movie. I'm more of like, I don't know if you've seen some of my past work, like horror or like heavy dramas, things like that. But so it started with the director of the movie of Saint Nick, Justin, and I. We were gonna do a short film based on a Stephen King novel, and it's like The Man in the Black Suit is I think which what it was, and we were looking for like a 12-year-old boy to play in the role. So I reached out to my old acting coach because I know he teaches kids. And I said, hey, I'm looking for this. And he goes, oh, I got this kid, Alex. He's really good. He's into it. I'll connect you with his mom. And so fast forward, it turned out we ended up not making that short film. But talking to the mom, she was like, hey, Alex will only be doing this for a few months, but I really think he has something. I'd love for Alex to maybe you can film a reel for him or something. And I said, well, a reel is fine, but why don't we just do a little short film? We'll keep the budget low, and then you guys attend film festivals with it and kind of start your Hollywood experience, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't think anything of it. I quickly wrote it, directed it. I hired Justin to shoot it for us, and it turned out it's a pretty good little short film. It was a nice representation of what he can do as a little actor, and it did pretty good in the little local film festivals. And from there, the mom kind of caught the bug, right? She was like, oh, this is fun. The film festival thing, sharing stuff on social media. She was about it, and getting good feedback about her son in it. So then Justin and I approached her and said, listen, why don't we take this concept and we make it a feature film? We shoot it at just your house to keep the budget low, and we put a Christmas spin on it, and hopefully that will lead to more sales other than just making like a drama, right? And that's what it turned into. Saint Nick is based on our short film called Who's Watching Who. Kind of followed the same thing. I'm the disheveled uncle. I got to watch the nephew, the estranged nephew I haven't seen or in a while, and it just happens over Christmas weekend. And that's Saint Nick in a nutshell.
No, great. How long did it take you to write the script for that, and how did you get on with the ideas?
So Saint Nick took a little bit because I wrote it probably within maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but then I hired a friend to kind of rewrite it, and then the concept of the uncle and nephew isn't done very often. So I actually had some bigger players involved at certain points with it that they kind of wanted to like completely change it, or they thought they needed to bring in a third-party writer and just use the concept, and it started becoming bigger than I think what we wanted it for this. So then we just kept it what it was. I hired my friend to like rewrite it. Justin did some tweaks on it as well. And the concept it's easy when the concept is there. It's the idea that mom has to go out of town Christmas weekend. The uncle, who hasn't seen his nephew in a long time, is a little disheveled, a little bit of an alcoholic, has to put up with him. And then we just put little side quests to make the movie kind of find its arc, But, you asked me about the idea of making a short film first, and then turning it into a feature, yes. Right? And I've been doing it 12 plus years now, and it's always in my mind because, wow, short films are much cheaper. I can almost just make even a trailer and just pick out the best parts of my script and just shoot those out of order and just put it together. But in reality, I don't even know if that works. And the only reason why it worked with Saint Nick and Who's Watching Who is because it really was a pitch to the mom investor to go, hey, listen, look what we can do with a little bit of money. We can make something cool with a little bit more. And that's why I think it worked in that specific way, right? I don't think that if we just made Who's Watching Who, and then even though it got into Burbank Film Festival, it got into pretty decent, like got into LA Shorts, which is an Oscar accredited one. Even though it did that well, I don't think it would have led to third-party investors that didn't know us to go, oh, I want to give you guys money to make the feature film, right? I just think there's too much content to bank on that. Unless it's like a specific person, like an investor goes, hey, show me what you got. Then, of course, like, why not make a short or a trailer or something like that? But yeah, I think that's a tough road. And that 5 to 10 grand that you would have spent on that short, that could have gone into your feature at least for, pre-pro, right?
Yeah, no, and I've heard a lot of great things about the film, so I'm really excited to get to see it.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested to hear. So obviously, everyone says it's a really good film of those who have seen it. But how did you manage to get a distributor? So a lot of people who listen to Go Creator or like watch us, they're always interested about, okay, I made the film, now what do I do with it? Is it just going
Yeah.
to lie on someone's shelf or what? And obviously, you got picked up from the California Pictures. How did that come about?
I've been distributing a lot of films over the years, right? Like, or working with distributors, I guess you could say. And, I think we forget that this is a business, right? And while we'd love to be creative and we'd love to make our art, it's truly, truly a business, especially now with such like a crowded landscape of everybody shooting everything on anything. So California Pictures and I met Jennifer, who we both know. I met her at Cannes when I was trying to sell my action film, The Handler, 2021, I think it was, somewhere around there. We had mutual friends. It just turned out we're from the same state, turns out. And we're like, how do we know each other? Like, it felt like we kind of knew each other from Florida, where I think we're both kind of sort of from. When St. Nick was done, she was kind of one of the first ones I reached out to, because I felt they're kind of a boutique distributor. They don't have 1,000 films, so I felt like they could give the love that I think a small budget film like this deserved. But I'm also under the impression, to filmmakers out there, if anybody's listening, that if you make a movie that's 100K, maybe less than 100K, something like that, and definitely if you're under 50K, if you don't have a name actor in it, right? You don't have a specific IP or something that makes it stand out, like, for instance, the Terrifier series, right? They're not good movies, but they focus on gore, right? And they do it really well. Think something specific like that. I really think that you should look into self-distribution. I was just saying, like, if you're stressing yourself out because you're not getting a distributor, it's not as glamorous as like you think. It's you're giving at least 25% of your movie away for 7 to 10 years, right? So all that hard work, just so you know, and a lot of the time they're just doing a lot of the things that you can do, right? Obviously, internationally speaking, that's a little different, but at least for domestic, they're putting it on the platforms. You're still the one that's going to have to come up with a marketing budget.
Well, I know California Pictures,
Sorry.
they're great. I mean, they do, from what I've seen, the way they handle the films and their clients, they are very much, involved in that. And they don't just take anybody
Yeah.
on. So I do appreciate that part, because I've seen that in the industry as well.
Yeah.
It varies about who you actually join hands with. So, but tell me a
Yeah.
bit more about your acting roles, because you've produced quite a lot of things and you've had a variety of roles. I know you won a Best Actor role as well in one of the Orlando festivals. So,
Right.
so how do you
Right.
come up with all these different characters? And have you written all the stories for these that you've shot, or tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. What's crazy is I was thinking about it the other day, and if I truly think about it, it's kind of depressing because, like I said, I've been doing this 10 plus years, and I started later too, right? Like, I was in my late 20s, 28, 29 when I got into the acting world. So for me, very quickly, I learned that if you're going to wait to be casted for something, then you're going to have a very long road ahead of you. I mean, unless you're like a Hemsworth, right? 6'5", gorgeous, you know what I mean? But for the majority of us normals, it's a tough road, right? So I learned very on that I was going to have to produce and write and to be able to showcase my work. And most of my films that I star in, all my features pretty much are something that I wrote, that I produced, that I found investors for, and so forth, that I cast myself in the lead role. Writing and producing isn't my first love. It's not my passion. Acting is, but I knew that I had to get good at those things in order to put myself in places to showcase what I believe in myself, what I can do, right? So, yeah, I mean, I always tell actors all the time, I'm like, if you're just waiting around, it's not going to go well for you. You have to go out and create. Like, you started financing your own films, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think it's very interesting as well to see. I mean, did you actually do acting classes initially as well, or
I
get
did it
about
for about a year.
Okay.
And so I started in Florida, and I started kind of writing before acting. And then I just Googled how to be an actor and was like, oh, get headshots, oh, self-submit. And I did a few school projects in Florida with no training. And I think that gave me enough confidence to be like, I'm a star. I don't, I think a lot of people come out here from their state where they did okay, and then they realize that, oh, this is like a different animal out here. And so I took 2 acting classes, total amount of time, about a year. And I learned a lot. It's just, I have a little bit of an anxiety thing. So I think when I didn't feel like I needed to do acting classes anymore, I kind of stopped. It's sort of like a narcissistic quality in the sense where like you have to think that you have to perform in a top tier, like an Oscar level at like in your acting class, where it's supposed to be a safe place. You're supposed to have fun and relax and just try things. So that it almost turned into a more of a stressful situation. So as soon as I made my first film, I was kind of like, okay, I got what I needed. It's time for me just to move on.
But it's amazing because those skill sets. It's actually something I've been talking a lot about in this festival that I just joined, because I'm always telling the filmmakers, it's great to be creative, but if you don't understand the film business, then and you just said it, and you've actually ticked all the boxes. So not only are you acting, but you actually wrote, but you also produced, and getting the funding and actually selling the films. So how did you get to learn that? Like how long did it take you to learn? How did you actually get people to fund you just like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we'll start with my first feature, which is Anabolic Life, and it started with it always starts with a good script. Every time I've had a project where people jumped on and invested, it starts with that. So Anabolic Life was loosely based off my college life, where I was bodybuilding and taking steroids and kind of selling them as well. So I wrote that, and acting coach, they were like, we've never seen anything like this. And it gave it the opportunity where people jumped on, were looking for something kind of cool, kind of different. And that led to, finding investors for it. It's the people you know. I always tell writers and producers to go take acting classes. And that's a weird thing to like, I'm not an actor, but who do you think is going to help fund these things, right? Producer classes and writing classes, there's no producer class, right? Like it's like maybe you eventually join the PGA and you're with adults that are already producing, right? So if you're young and you're getting into it, writing classes are fine, but the actors are the one that's going to fight for the role and help you find the money and put things on credit cards, because everybody wants to showcase their stuff. So I always tell writers and producers to join a good acting class. As a writer, how are you going to get your stuff out there? You're going to put it on blacklist and blindly? Or I just feel like if you're strictly just a writer, how are you ever going to get your things made? I don't see that being possible. So the way you get things made is that you join an acting class, and maybe you ask the teacher to read some of your material, like have actors, and then they like it, and then they go, how can I be in this? With Anabolic Life, that was a crash course in distribution, and it was about 7-8 years ago. So it was kind of right on the cusp of putting name actors in your movies. Now it's like everybody does it, and nobody's worth anything anymore, right? It was early on, like maybe Eric Roberts was like still valuable, in that sense. But we had actually a legit cast that I'm not ashamed of at all. Like we didn't go like, let's put so and so in there because he might be like, we did a good casting. Anyway, so I learned very quickly that self-distribution is always an option right there. I learned on Anabolic Life because who we went with, it was a legitimate distributor that still distributes friends of mine movies and stuff. You still see it all over the place. But I learned very quickly that they're not going to market your film, right? They're just going to put it up on platforms and do their best at film markets to try to get international investors. But there's no guarantee you're going to be locked in, and they're going to take percentage. So that was the first time I was like, wait a second, this is not, like, you don't have to go this route. And then my second movie, which is No Way Out, which is the Alaskan feature, super low budget. I mean, we spent like 25 grand on this thing. We were sleeping in the cold. It was like crazy. But we self-distributed that, and it's been profitable since day one. It just runs on Tubi, and Tubi pays for their ads really, really well. And so I have no problem telling people, if you're making a low budget film, like under 50K, just throw it up on Tubi. Find a way to find an aggregator, middleman that gets it on Tubi for you, and do that. They pay really well.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's great. And of all the characters that you've played, is there one favorite one? And why?
I think Yeah, I guess it would be, you know, it's funny because my Anabolic Life movie, it's like, it's kind of sad talking about it because to me it was my Rocky, right? Like it was like I put my heart and soul in not only the acting, but everything behind it. I went through like a body change in it, like a transformation. You know, it was like, it's a story that still hasn't been told, like the idea of like body dysmorphia from a male's perspective and extreme steroid usage and how it can affect your family. And I just thought it had like a lot of great things. And I, as an actor, I mean, I starved myself to get down to 130 pounds. I ate 6,000 calories a day to get over 200 pounds in the same movie. To this day, I still haven't found another project where I've been able to put my heart and soul into. So that's probably my favorite character. But
Yeah.
that movie, The Handler, I did, while it's not a great movie, and you know, again, it starts with a script, right? So, but I didn't produce it, I didn't write it, I was just casted in it. But I'm not a fighter. Like, I've never done any fighting at all. I think I took a boxing class one time prior. I mean, I don't think I've even punched anybody. And so to get casted as this kind of action guy, it was a cool thing to learn how to fight and how to choreograph that and just kind of feel like a total badass. So the Handler character, Riker Dune was his name. That's a pretty fun role too.
Let's get back to Saint Nick. We're looking forward to obviously watch that, especially at a time where everything is so grim and ugly in the world. How was it casting Alex and working with him, as in working with a child instead of an adult?
Right. So it was kind of like, since his mom was the lead investor, again, she did what I've always done, where it's like the pay to play thing, where Alex wasn't really casted, he was guaranteed involved in the film, right? So no matter what, Alex had the role. And for his first feature, now what people don't understand is features are hard work because, you know, they're long days, 10 to 12-hour days, and you don't just do one take on anything, on ever, right? And so you got to do multiple angles, and most of the time you're off camera saying your lines 10 times. So that can be very taxing and feel redundant. And you can change because you get bored of saying it. But what was great about Alex, and even though he was still playing baseball, he's like a very good baseball player, still going to school, things like that, he never forgot his lines, was always professional, you know, and did his best, really. There was a lot of our film takes place at night, and, you know, all of a sudden it's like midnight, 1 a.m., and we're like, let's just get this last shot. He's asleep, you know, we wake him up and, hey, get out there, kid, you know, and you know, so for that, he did such a great job being able to handle that kind of situation. I mean, I was exhausted, never mind how he felt, you know. So yeah, Alex did such a great job, so professional. We're all blown away. He like knew all his lines. I didn't even know all my lines. So, you know, so good on Alex for sure.
Yeah, no, he comes across as really humble and very sweet. So I'm looking forward to speak to him as well and hear about his experience. And yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, if you're shooting till late nights and still being back in school, that's hard. That's hard for any adult as well. So it's like, yeah, hats off to him. So now with Saint Nick, what were the challenges when you shot it? Were there any challenges, or has it just been a smooth sail?
No, never a smooth sailing, right? I mean, the big thing about like when people talk about funding for a feature film and needing so much money is because it really does take an army to make a smooth movie, right? In this one, because we had such a low budget, that everybody was doing multiple things, right? So obviously I'm the lead actor, but I'm also the lead producer, which means that I'm handling payroll, I'm handling getting lunch orders together. Everything that I should not be doing, I was still doing. And Justin himself, I mean, Justin was handling lighting, camera, and directing. Him and I both kind of co-directed in certain parts of the film when I knew he had like a big setup for lights outside or something like that. But majority of it was his idea, his look of everything. And then we just had a few other, obviously our sound guy just focused on sound, but you know, we had maybe an assistant, we had a production designer that did a really great job by herself. So that's when people say, why do movies cost so much money? Is because you really do need a lot of people to make them smooth. But ours was as smooth as it was going to get for the lack of people we had. I guess going all the way through pre-production on trying to get the script right, it was like, you know, when you have multiple chefs in the kitchen, everybody has an idea of what works, what's funny, and like everybody kind of becomes passionate about their idea. So I don't even think the script was even fully ready by the time we started shooting. We just knew it was now or never. And sometimes it's like that, right? So all the way from the script stage to we had rolling blackouts as well and during filming at night. So I have like this monologue at the end about what Christmas means to me and blah, blah, blah. And mid-speech, all the power went out, right? And then we had to wait for like 30 minutes. And so, you know, those resets are really tough. And then even in post-production is finding the right distributor, finding the right look for the film, finding the right edit. There's so many difficulties in making films, never mind when you don't have enough money. So yeah, it's all difficult. There's tons of difficulties there. So you're just happy when it comes out and people somewhat enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, we can't wait to see it. And anything else that you're working on currently, or is this the main focus right now?
I mean, you know, obviously what's out is what I like to focus on, but I always have multiple projects going on. So I purchased a script. I didn't write this, but I did rewrite it, and it follows a father and daughter that are ghost hunters, and they choose this haunted house, and it begins attacking the daughter. Oh. And then the father goes through this kind of Jack Torrance, The Shining arc, where he'd rather get footage than care about his daughter, and it's such a cool idea. So I have a team on that right now, and you know, we're in pre-production, raising money and getting close to starting that. That'll be a much bigger budget. You know, you get to a point where you're like, sometimes it's better to just wait until you're fully financed instead of just going, it's close enough, right? So yeah, working on that next.
Oh, that'll be great. And well, for that time when that comes ready, hopefully we'll have FilmVest up and running on GoCreate as well. It's kind of a place for you to list your slate, so investors can look at find the projects, and if they're interested to invest, they connect with you. So we'll let you know when that gets ready. And what about collaborations across borders? Is that something you think about? Because you've got quite an interesting mix yourself. We were just talking about that before. So you've got quite a few mix in your looks. And do you want to just tell everyone what your background is?
Yeah, sure. I'm like a mutt, right? Is that what they call it? So my mom is Spanish from Spain, English, Danish, which I know you're from. And then my dad, Polish, Russian, and then Jewish as well. That's where like my last name comes from. So I'm like, they usually say you are what your mom is. So like, I guess I'm Christian in that sense, but by last name, I guess, and people always go like, Jewish people always go, you have such a, like Christopher is such a Christian name, and then Levine is such a Jewish name. I go, yeah, you know, it's like my mom and my dad, you know, so unique in that sense too, yeah.
That's such a cool mix. I mean, honestly, I mean, you're like just a man of the world, literally. So, and I know you've visited some of the places, like you've been to some other countries. Have you considered productions abroad as well?
I mean, I'm never against that idea. If somebody approached me, I just don't have, I don't want to say the time, but my schedule doesn't really allow me to go to focus on that, right? The easier way is to just focus in your backyard. And then when things are needed or go from there, right? Like for instance, I have a script I wrote to do with a kind of like a vampire movie, right? And I wanted to shoot in Croatia. And so I started working with Croatian investors and their post-production services and stuff like that. So something like that where it's like, specifically, I need a castle. Yeah. Like, obviously that makes sense for me to reach out. But for like most of my productions, you know, unless somebody has a direct connection to, hey, I know an investor that's in the UK or something. And I usually don't, but I'm always open for it.
Okay, and how will they find you? If not on Go Creator.
Yeah, Go Creator. Just find me on there. No, but you can always, I'm always on Instagram or Twitter. So, and it's just only Chris Levine is the username. So, But I'm always on there, so feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. It's been lovely
Yeah.
meeting you and hearing your story. And I think you also shared quite a lot of good points for new filmmakers to, to think about when they're entering the industry. And I think that's a gap that's actually, you said it taken you some time to understand it, or actually I would say you learned it quite quick compared to other people I've spoken to. So yeah.
Right.
Well, congratulations, and I can't wait to see Saint Nick.
Thank you, Geeta. Yeah,
Thank
and like,
you.
I don't want to discourage people, right? Like, I don't, it can be discouraging, but if you truly feel like you wake up every day and there's nothing you want else to do, like, there's a lot of easier jobs you can make a lot more money doing. But if you wake up and you're truly like, no, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, I'm an editor, like whatever it is, then you'll find a way to continue to do it.
Oh, that's good advice. I guess that triggers me to ask you, if you were not doing all of that, what do you think you might have been ending up doing?
I've always been into cars, and so I'd probably be like a YouTube car guy, is what I'm thinking.
What kind of car? What's your favorite car?
God, I learned to drive on a Corvette, so I feel like I'm always gonna be a Chevy Corvette guy. Even though I love obviously Lambos and Ferraris, and I drive a BMW, but I think Corvette is where my heart will be.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Geeta.